Live from Houston, Texas, a show for local business owners. This is Business Houston Podcast. If you're a small or medium-sized business, this is your source for trends, interviews, and tips for winning in today's economic climate. Presented by the BBB for Greater Houston and South Texas. You're listening to Business Houston, and this is your host, Matt Bertram.
Hi, welcome to Business Houston Podcast. My name is Matt Bertram. This afternoon, I have a special guest and a well-known business in the local area. I have Sue Burnett with Burnett Specialists. How are you doing today, Sue?
I'm doing great.
Wonderful. Well, it's an honor to talk to you. First off, you've built a great business in the Houston and surrounding areas. Would love to hear the story of how you got started.
Well, in 1970, I moved to Houston and got into the personnel business, and I ran a small personnel service from the time that I was about 24 until 27. And then at 27, my husband suggested that I start my own business. And I really wasn't looking to do that, but he persuaded me to do it. So I quit my job and started up a company with 5 people that I hired and trained. And the first year we were profitable. And I borrowed $10,000 to start the business, and we paid that loan back. And we have not been really had any debt since then. And so now I've got 5 offices in Houston. We have offices in Austin, San Antonio, El Paso, and in Dallas. We operate as choice specialists, and we are rated by the Houston Business Journal as the #1 direct hire placement company in Houston, and have been for the last 13 years. And we were rated last year as the #3 staffing temporary firm. And so we've been a BBB Pinnacle winner 4 times. So I've been on the board of BBB for many years. And so I'm definitely a big believer in the BBB.
Well, fantastic. Well, it's great to have you on. So tell me a little bit about the type of staffing you do. I know that there's a wide variety in the personnel business of what you can do. You know, Houston has medical and oil, and, you know, there's a lot of small businesses. Can you kind of maybe run the gambit, like a lot of people out there, and maybe even too, like, who is the right person to use a recruiter, right? Like, when do you not use a recruiter? When should you use a recruiter? Where is that line, or how do you view that, or how do you kind of shape that for maybe small business owners?
Well, I think, first of all, the type of staffing that we do, we have specialties, and we have an accounting division, an IT, an engineering. We have a teleskills, which is call center personnel. We also do supply chain. Then we have legal. We also do administrative, like executive assistants and receptionists. And we do a little bit of light industrial in Houston, not very much. And so we work everything from low level up to, you know, CEOs and CFOs. So we're really a full service company. We don't do medical unless it's medical administrative. We don't do. We do place nurses, I will say, but only in direct hire positions. We are not a medical temp staffing company.
Got it. Okay. So, you know, full service, perm placement, contract, across the board. Just know the, you know, more the nurses and maybe medical staff positions makes a lot of sense. So, okay. So, you know, there's a lot of small businesses, part of the BBB. One of the things I hear a ton is, you know, I can't find the right people, right? Or like, it's tough to find the right people. I've heard that a lot. And, you know, depending on where they are in the life cycle of their business, like how do you, like, if you're giving a presentation or you're talking to some potential like business owners that might need staffing, how do you position your services of like when maybe you realize you need a headhunter or a executive recruiter, or when you should go it on your own, or like what, like do you frame that up for them in any way of how
Well,
they
I
should
think that
look
companies right now, there was a headline in the Chronicle this weekend that said that unemployment is the lowest rate that it has been in 52 years. That's my entire career. That means it's the lowest rate that it's been in my entire career. So people are hard to find. Good people are hard to find. A lot of the people, in fact, right now, I would say for direct hire, the bulk of the people that we're placing are already working, and they simply are looking for another position, but they are not unemployed
on the
and
market?
looking for another job. Now, that said, we do have positions for recent grads, entry level types of people who are willing to, be someone trained in a company. And we do have companies that are willing to pay us fees for those entry level people. So we are really, I think, as far as a company thinking, when should we use a service? I think it's when you've tried on your own to find people and can't find them, or you need someone very quickly and you don't have time to look on your own, or you truly don't have the time, nor do you have someone internally that is qualified to screen people and interview and go through that whole process. Because I will share with you that when you post a job yourself, you may get a lot of responses, and someone has to go through maybe hundreds of responses. And a lot of times those people aren't even vaguely qualified for your position. Sometimes when people see a position, it's like they're not even vaguely qualified for it, but they go ahead and apply for it. So it's very time consuming to go through all of those. Then you have to call those people, do phone interviews, find out how much money they're looking for. So by using a personnel service like us, it cuts through all that. We've already interviewed people, or we'll go out and actually search for the right person for you. We'll do the screening, we'll do the interviews, we'll decide who is best. We're not going to present 30 people. We're going to present 3 to 5, and they're the best ones. So it saves the client a tremendous amount of time. Plus, we're the ones that are, really working with the applicant, preparing them for the interview, telling them where to go, and working with the client as far as offers and that type of thing.
No, I think at all stages, it's incredibly important to vet the right people. And then absolutely, sometimes there's very specific needs that you might know that you need to have for a particular position of maybe, company culture, skill sets, experience. Some of those people are somewhat difficult to find, and then vetting them and all that. So I think that there's certainly a lot of cases where that makes a lot of sense. So, you mentioned how it's the lowest, time right now, like as far as like unemployment goes, right? It's at the lowest levels right now. I'm curious about maybe you can go on a short journey and share with us, when COVID hit, what happened in the business, and how maybe hiring had changed through that. And then maybe where we are today. I'm seeing a lot more of kind of remote positions and things of that nature. I feel like there's been an acceleration of communication like this that we're doing. And so I'm just curious your perspective on those things.
Well, actually, when COVID hit last March in 2020, it was the first time in my career that anything like that has ever happened, where companies literally nationwide were shut down. So that was a huge event. And of course, my company was not used to working from home. we had always worked in the office. We enjoyed working in the office. And so for all of a sudden, my staff to be totally working from home was quite a change. And it was a difficult change for my staff because 95% of my staff are women, and most of those are working moms who had children who were also at home and trying to do online school. And so I can tell you that my staff said it was the worst time in their life to be working, trying to work from home, but also having these kids that were trying to deal with learning online. So it was a challenge.
And can you talk a little bit about like the job market from?
The job market. So the job market at that point just came to a screeching halt. So April, May, June, very tough months. Companies still were not hiring, and everything was put on hold. Then all of a sudden in July and August, we started seeing a real shift of people coming back to the offices. Not everyone by any means, but a lot of people. And then we saw that there were a lot of people who had needed people before the pandemic, but had to put all that on hold. Now it's 3-4 months later, and they really need those people. So we started seeing clients, and this was the first time ever, doing Zoom call interviews and hiring people and having them start at home without ever having met them in person or having that person meet anyone in the company or even see the office. So that was an extremely unique thing that happened. And I think that, there's so many articles that have been written about this, but basically the pandemic really changed a lot of the way that companies are working now. What we've seen is a real shift of companies who are now allowing more hybrid work where people are working from home more. They may be working in the office a few days a week and allowed to work at home for a couple of days. We've got some companies where the entire company is still working from home.
Yeah.
And so it's really changed the work flow and the world, I think, from that standpoint. The market right now, and remember, I've been in the business for 51 years, is one of the best job markets for an applicant that I've seen, because there are so many jobs available and companies are hiring. There's been some talk in the media, but it's not correct that the economy is not good. That's not true. The economy is great right now. Companies are hiring. The stock market has been doing really great. And so we've seen nothing but a great economy. I think that going forward, we're going to continue to see people who will have more flexibility in the future than what they have had in the past in their work, the way that they have been working in the office. So I'm very excited about what's happening in the market. Houston itself is booming. And so I hope that this next year will be as good as this year has been.
No, I agree with you. I've really started to see a shift. I'm interested in your perspective. Like, at least with our company, we're based here in Houston. We have a nice office in Houston. Everybody started working from home, and the company wasn't as hard to bring people back into the office. And when we were looking for, as we were growing through COVID, more talent, we opened up the hiring pool to outside the Houston area. And so we've been now have a hybrid team of people in Houston and, across geographic area, because now we're all in cyberspace. Right. And
Right.
So I'm curious about, have you seen that as kind of a trend when you're hiring for people? Has the job market expanded to say, hey, you need somebody, but do they need to be in Houston? Or like, are we going to bring them in for training? Because that's what we're doing. We're bringing them in for training. They're here for a couple of weeks. And now to get people back into office with, maybe a 25% of the team not in Houston now, it's changing the dynamic a little bit, right? And so I'm curious about what you're seeing, because that's like, I guess from a personal experience, what we're dealing with. So.
Well, actually, what we saw, and it really started last year, was for the first time ever, we work a lot of call center jobs. And for the first time ever, all of a sudden, we had clients that were saying they can work at home. And then we had clients saying, we don't really care what city they're working in. Uh-huh. And so we saw that starting last year, and this year it's continued. I know that there are companies that are expanding outward and saying, we don't really care where they live. I think that there's some concerns about some of that going down the road, because if a lot of your staff are out of state, it's hard to do meetings other than on Zoom. So in our company, we are mostly back in the office, but we're allowing flexibility for people to be able to work from home some. And I think that the teamwork and the camaraderie and is back with our teams. It's very difficult to maintain that at home, even though a lot of people like to work at home. They become isolated and they don't feel a part of anything sometimes. So I don't want them to have that feeling. And some people, quite frankly, are not self-directed enough to be able to work all day at home. They sleep late and are not doing their job all day long. Whereas if they were in the office, they would be far more focused on what they're supposed to be doing. So I think it depends upon the person. I've got some people that have been extremely productive working at home, but I think it depends upon their situation and if they have small children and what is going on in their household.
No, absolutely. And I think for a lot of people to like get up, go somewhere and go to work, like that routine is really valuable for them. Well, I appreciate you sharing some of those things. You talked a little bit about being on the board of the BBB, and you've won awards, and I recently won an award, and so I wanted to hear a little bit more from you for people that are part of the BBB that are listening, as well as people in the greater Houston area. Like, I realized when I got involved in the BBB, there was a lot of things the BBB did that I didn't totally know about. And I think you're in a really good position to maybe highlight how you feel about the BBB, some of the things that they're doing, and maybe unpack some of the things that are not as apparent to most people, but are certainly valuable that the BBB offers.
Well, I think one of the things that the BBB offers that a lot of people aren't really familiar with is the educational part of BBB, where in particular, they're very focused about letting seniors know about scams that could, try and take their money. And those are out there. And so they're doing a lot of education with seniors about those types of things, where you get phone calls saying you've won money, or or trying to get your credit card or your bank account number. So that's one thing that I think that they've done that's extremely good. The other is that it offers an opportunity for consumers to be able to lodge a complaint if something has happened. And the BBB takes those seriously, and they have people who actually talk to the person that's lodged that complaint, and they contact the company to see if they can somehow make whatever their problem is, if they can remedy that or find a solution for it. And so I think that's important. And the other is that it gives consumers a way to be able to determine if a company that they're going to use for plumbing or cars or any type of service like that is a reputable company, and what kind of a rating do they have. So I think it provides a very valuable service.
Absolutely. And you want to highlight anything on your recent award or past awards?
Well, it's been wonderful to win these awards. We actually won the Pinnacle Award in 2020, and then I really didn't think we'd win it again back to back, but we did, and that was a nice surprise. Yeah, so we've won it, I think, 4 or 5 times over the years, and of course, we've been a finalist every year ever since they've had the luncheon. So I think that I will tell you, this last year at the luncheon, the ballroom was full of people. It was probably 900 people there, and everyone was very excited to get an award that won. And so I think that it recognizes small businesses who don't really have an opportunity to win an award any other way. So they're set up according to categories. So all the plumbing companies are together, all the air conditioning companies are together, all the car dealers are together, so that you're competing against people in your own category.
No, fantastic. No, I thought it was a great event, and encourage any small business owners to be part of the BBB if they're not. So can you give any tips? Like, okay, there's a lot of small business out here. Like I said before, I hear I need help with marketing, I need help with hiring. Like, those are the 2 biggest areas that I hear the most of. If there was a small business owner out there, maybe they've thought about using a staffing company or a personnel company, or maybe they need an executive recruiter to go find that right person, or however they're looking at it. Is there any kind of tips that you've given over the past that would be good to kind of share out there for people?
Well, I think that the most important thing is that the success of your business really is dependent upon the people who are working for you. And so finding the right people is very important. And I will tell you truthfully, there are so many people in business who really don't know how to go about finding someone or how to interview and select the right people. And so I think that they really need some assistance with that whole process. It's a very complicated process. And if you don't hire the right person, then it hurts your company. And so, one bad hire can really cause a lot of damage in a company. So you want to make sure that you're getting the right people. I think the other thing is that you want to run your company as though they're family members. I've always treated my staff as though they were part of my family. And as a result, I've got many, many very long tenured people ranging from 42 years down, and lots of 20-year people. So I that's always been a success tip for me. And the other thing is to be, if you've got particularly working moms that work for you, is to be understanding about them and to work with them if they've got a sick child, or if they have to go to the school to pick them up for some reason, or to go to a special event. And so we definitely have so many working moms, and we try to be very understanding about that situation.
No, I think that those are fantastic tips. Is there anything in this interview or that you wanted to make sure to get out there that we didn't discuss before we wrap up?
Well, I think that right now, being a part of the BBB is important, so that people that are thinking about using your services can look at that rating and decide if that's a good one to go to. They also have a list of different people that you could look at if you didn't know who to contact at all. And I think that also just making sure that in this economy that you take full advantage of it. I always used to say, and still do, make hay while the sun shines. When the economy's good, work as hard as you can, because it doesn't stay that way all the time. The economy is like a roller coaster. It goes up and down. So you want to take advantage of a great economy.
Well, fantastic. Burnett Specialists what's the best way for someone to get in contact with you?
The best way for someone to get in touch with me personally, and you certainly can call me, is my number is 713-977-4777, or just look us up. Just search for our name, and our corporate address will come up. We're on Richmond in Houston, and we've got offices also in the Woodlands. We have an office on 290. We have one in the Greenway Plaza area, and we have one that is off of 45 close to Pasadena. So we really cover the entire city, and we can help you in any of those areas.
Fantastic. Well, those of you that are listening and maybe you haven't heard of Burnett's Specialists in Staffing, it's BURNETT. So BURNET. You should be able to find them everywhere. They've been in Houston a long time, got a great reputation. Sue, it was a pleasure to have you on Business Houston podcast.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for listening. Business Houston puts a spotlight on local small and medium-sized business, interviewing those successful business owners in Houston and those business owners that are winning in today's economic climate. Business Houston is presented to you by the BBB of Greater Houston and South Texas. Make sure to like, rate, and review the show. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at Hugh Biz Podcast. That's HOU Biz Podcast. Till next time, this is Business Houston.